Welcome back to Am I for Change? I am your host, Dr. Monica Gilbert, and today we are going to be speaking about Am I for Change and supervisees slash interns. Now, most of us have been a supervisee or an intern at some point of our career. So I want you to think back to that younger self when you were a supervisee in the field and you were so passionate and you were so ready to use the interventions. And of course, you had challenges like everyone has, but you were so ready to get there. A lot of the times, and this happens to everyone. A lot of the times when we are supervisors, we tend to forget about these challenges that we encounter when we were supervisees or interns. And other times we tend to project the way that we were or the expectations that we had for ourselves onto our supervisees. This is very normal. It's part of human nature. We're all human beings here. So it happens. Now, the problem with that is that it kind of prompts this fixing reflex that we have. And if you've been to the past podcasts, you know what the fixing reflex is or the writing reflex. And that doesn't help. It doesn't help. So just imagine you have a newbie coming in. She or he is new to behavior therapy, is new to your client, and you are teaching them everything you know. Of course, inadvertently or just naturally, there's a hierarchical model that comes about. So you are the teacher and they are the student. Obviously, there's always going to be some type of hierarchy in our relationship with our supervisees, but as much as possible, you want to attempt to have a partnership. So let's go back to this supervisee that just came in and they're kind of like this wide eye, ready to go, and they're having a lot of challenges. And again, this is part of everything that you try. Everything that's new, you're always going to encounter challenges. Now, what happens when you are in there with the supervisee and you are giving them the interventions to use, you are giving them feedback, and it's like pulling teeth. Like they're just not getting it. They tell you they're going to take the data and you don't see the data. You facilitated a couple of solutions and it just doesn't happen. I think that the first thing that we all feel is a sense of frustration, this sense of like, why aren't you using these tools? Like, I'm giving you everything you need, everything you're asking me for, I'm giving it to you. So, why are you not using it? And instead of becoming curious, which is, I think, a direct solution to the question of why aren't you doing it, we tend to do something different. We go in there and we're like, okay, maybe we have to be a little tougher, or maybe we have to use strikes, or maybe we have to have a meeting, or I don't know, try something different with them. And everything that we try is just not happening. So I invite you all to use the techniques in motivational interviewing because I have seen firsthand as a business owner and also as a BCBA and a licensed psychologist, because I also have interns in the psychology world of things. I've seen how these techniques can really help. Not It's not just that you will get this buy-in from that supervisor or that intern, but you'll be able to build a better relationship. And the buy-in won't be a superficial buy-in. And you know what I mean by superficial buying, right? When you go to the session to supervise, all of a sudden therapists are doing everything that you taught them. But the minute that you leave, it just doesn't maintain. It doesn't generalize. It just dies right there. So we don't want that either. We don't want like this superficial kind of compliance to everything that we say. We want it to become natural. So the first thing that I want you to do, or I'm inviting you to try, is to become curious. Let's say that you have a therapist that is not taking data. Now, we all know how data is important, whether you're in the psychology field or you're in the behavioral field. We need objective data. So let's say that you've already helped them, you've given them tons of suggestions of how to do it, and they're still not taking data or the data is just not accurate. So the next conversation you have with them should be a conversation to figure out what the challenges are. So, something that I've tried in the past is I'll go in with my supervisee and I'll say, I've noticed that you haven't been taking data for the last week or 2 weeks, or the last set of data that you took doesn't seem really accurate. And now I know that taking data can be difficult. I know myself when I've been taking data and the child has a tantrum or different things are going on, it's really difficult to be true to the data or even accurately take it. What are your challenges? What are some challenges that you are facing with taking data? Right there, I asked an open ended question. And this open ended question was to identify what these challenges are. How are we going to help them if they're not telling us their challenges? A lot of the times we tend to just come up with our own hypothesis of what their challenges are, and that's not accurate because it's just a guesstimate. So I would ask them that. What are some challenges that you're encountering? Let's say they say something like, "Well, it's just that I understand that data is important, but this child has also made a lot of progress. So I just don't get why I have to take data." So right there we get some form of resistance speech, or counter change talk or sustained talk. Instead of letting them know, hey, these are the reasons, you can try either of these approaches. You can, one, continue to ask open ended questions and evoke to get them or help them get to that point where they tell you what these challenges are. Or you can use the EPE or AOA approach. I don't know if you guys remember that, but I'll refresh your memory. Ask, offer, ask. That is the AOA approach that we use with our clients. So when we are providing feedback, we should use the AOA approach because it allows us to respectfully express our concerns. So let's say we're going to use that approach. I would say something like, okay, so tell me a little bit about why you think collecting data is important. And let's say they told me, well, sometimes it's important, but I'm seeing the progress anyways. I don't see why I should be collecting data for everything. I'll say something along the lines of, is it okay if I share with you some of the reasons why collecting data is actually important? They're going to say, sure. And then I'm going to go ahead and tell them, well, for insurance sakes, we have to show that the child's showing progress. We can't just do it in a subjective way. You're not getting on the phone with the insurance. We have to show them the graphs. Secondly, it's our ethics. It's based on our ethics. Third, it's our own way of seeing if the intervention that we're using is actually working as well. And I can go on and on and on with all the reasons. And this last part, which again is a very, very important part, is I want to ask again. I want to ask and say something along the lines of, what did you get from the information that I just shared with you? And then that therapist, that supervisee, will hopefully repeat all the important points that I said. If she missed something or he missed something, I would gladly just add to that conversation. So, this is a way where you can communicate the concerns again and this information in a way where it's a conversation, where it's not, let me tell you what to do kind of stance. The other side of it is that in asking open ended questions, we already asked about some of the therapist's challenges. I would say something like, okay, so we have already addressed or already identified why it's important to take data, but I've noticed that it's still difficult for you to take data. So tell me exactly like what part of the data process or the data taking is difficult for you. And let's say they say, well, it's just hard for me to focus on two things at the same time. Instead of going in there and saying, well, try this, and this, let's evoke, let's take a step back and ask the supervisee, well, what are some things that you think you can try? What are some things you've tried in the past when you've had to focus on one thing and you've had a bunch of other things going on and you've been able to focus on that one thing? Maybe it's a test in school, or maybe it's finishing a plan or doing something. So think about a time in the past where you've been in a similar situation. What techniques have you used? And you want to draw those techniques back to what you're asking them to do. And again, we are helping evoke that from them. And in doing that, you want to use affirmations, you want to use all those other techniques that we've learned about motivational interviewing, reflections as well. It sounds like you're a very resourceful person, even though you've mentioned that it's difficult for you to focus. You've also mentioned that in the past you've been able to write things down and that has been effective. I wonder how you can start doing that here. Do you think that how can we use this or embed this technique that you've learned um, in this situation or in this challenge that you're having with taking data? In summarizations, you want to summarize everything that you've spoken about and then invite for the future. So say something along the lines of, well, okay, let's try this technique that you came up with. Sounds good. And I'll check in next week and we'll see how it's going. So again, this communicates a more of this collaborative approach that you have with your supervising. And another thing that I wanted to say about MI and supervisees, and this has to do with this topic, but I I encountered this question about a couple weeks ago. I was providing oversight for this BCBA that was taking the one-on-one courses and my courses with me, and she was telling me about this situation that she was having with this RBT. So this RBT was a newer RBT in the field, and she just felt like, well, she also had to come in and work with the client and the RBT because the last BCBA was not supervising, was not doing what she was supposed to be doing. So she had to come in, and basically it was a new phase. And she came in all passionate and ready and all these programs. And she was concerned because the RBT was just not doing the programs or was telling her, yes, I'm going to do the programs, but then wouldn't really do it. It was very like superficial. When she would go to the session, the program was done, but then when she would leave, it died there. So she was concerned. She didn't know what to do. And she came to me asking a million and one questions. And the first thing I asked her, I said, how is your rapport with this supervising? And she was kind of like shocked a little bit. You know, that face where you're kind of like shocked and you're like, oh, that's right. So this was through Zoom, and she says, "Yeah, I don't think I have a good rapport." And I said, "Well, we have to start with that." So we start with rapport. If we don't have that, we have nothing, whether it's starting with our clients or with the parents of our clients or a mental health client or whoever it is that we're working with. If we don't have rapport, we don't have trust, we don't have buy-in, we don't have anything. So that should always be the first step. And she was kind of like taken back and she was like, you know what? I was thinking about all these elaborate things, but we always have to think about the simple things. Those are the ones that we miss. And I really don't have that rapport with the therapist. And she even asked me, she said, well, what do I do? How do I build rapport? Right? Like it's always been really easy. And I said, well, the same way that you would build rapport with your clients. You have to establish yourself as a reinforcer. You have to understand their likes. I even asked her a couple of questions about that RBT and she had no idea. Like, are they in school? Are they doing their master's program, bachelor's program? What's I don't know, like what's their favorite sports team? Of course, these are like nonsensical things, but really it's just building rapport. And it doesn't mean that you are friends with that person. We have to be careful, and professional rapport is completely different. It's based on trust, not really based on having this enmeshed relationship, but you do have to understand these things about them. So I told her, next session, this is what I would recommend. I would recommend you go in there and forget about the programs. Like tell the parent that you're going to forget about the programs for at least 2 sessions. The child is okay. They're not having any super aggressive behavior. So it's gonna be okay. And I want you to take a step back and just build rapport with this therapist while you guys are doing the programs. Instead of you telling her like these are all the programs that you have to do, sit down with the RBT and say, okay, what are the programs that you think are most important, or how would you run this program? Like really establish that connection, that partnership. Again, if we don't have that partnership, we really have nothing. The other important piece after autonomy, after after rapport is that we have to honor autonomy. And what do I mean by honoring autonomy? We have to understand that every single person that you meet is autonomous. They have the right to make their own decision. Not only do they have the right to make their own decision, they will make their own decision. But also they know, like they have incredible knowledge. I think if we approach people with that mentality, it changes things. It changes the way that we communicate because we are not telling them something they know. We already think they probably know this. So let me first ask and see what they know about this topic. And that is extremely powerful. So again, come in, build rapport 100%, respect their autonomy, and build a partnership with them. Build a partnership and use these other MI techniques like the ORs. Use open ended questions to build that rapport. Use open ended questions to try to evoke some of these things. Use reflection so they understand that you are aligning with them, that you are understanding where they're coming from, and also use reflections to make sure that the way that they're coming off is exactly the way that you understand it. And we all know expressive and receptive language is different, can be different. So summarizations, just to close it up and just to kind of pinpoint everything at the end of the session, and using that AOA approach, which allows us to share our concerns and express again that respect for that other person in a way where you're getting your point across as well. I hope you guys found value in this session and that now your conversations with your supervisees will be transformed and a little different. Please leave me comments. Let me know how it goes. I would love to hear from you guys. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of MI for Change. If you're ready to keep growing your motivational interviewing skills, I'd love to invite you to explore my MI Academy, where you'll find a full library of on-demand courses designed to help you put MI into practice with confidence. You can learn more at www.drmonicagilbert.com. Until next time, keep asking the questions that spark change.